I lost my mother when I was very young, and my father remarried the woman I grew up calling Mom. Mom has an older son and a daughter who is about 12 years older than me. It was never a secret that Mom wasn't my biological mother. I see my stepbrother on the holidays, but I have had zero contact with my stepsister. I learned why that was. My mom and stepsister moved in after she and my dad got married. I don't remember her being very nice, and then she was just gone. I was told she had to go away for a while. Mom brought me everywhere with her. The store, to her friends' places, to the zoo, etc. She helped me get ready for school and helped me with schoolwork. She watched a handful of kids' movies in the theater that, looking back, were likely indecipherable nonsense to her. She cried at my high school graduation, even when she promised me she wasn't going to cry. She was my mom. She loved me to bits. All the while, she never erased my mother. She and my dad would look at photos of my mother, and Dad would tell stories, and Mom always said she wished she met her. My father and maternal grandfather had it for me after she died, so I had something to remember her by. I have that photo album in my apartment. I've been looking at it a lot lately. Here is the kicker. It's not the original photo album. I never saw the original photo album. What made my mom disown my stepsister is that she burned the original after my mom scolded her for being rude to my father and me. Mom discovered what had happened because her and her friends had done it together. And one of her friends felt so guilty, she confessed to her own mom, who called my mom. Mom kicked stepsister out of the house and had movers take her things to her dad's house. Dad came home to my mom, who explained in tears what was up. She and my dad then went around to family, friends close and distant, and even my mother's alma mater to look for photos of my mom to try to make a new album. Dad told me everyone in their lives had risen to the occasion and they were able to build a new album. Even if some of the original photos and Polaroids were gone forever, they had new photos from Mom's college friends. I asked Dad if my stepsister ever apologized or tried to reach out, and he confirmed she tried. But Mom fundamentally wants nothing to do with her. I thought a lot about forgiveness and family these last few months. I never knew about the original album, so I didn't have much of a reason to hate her. I do think the album was likely a last straw for Mom and wasn't the primary problem, even though destroying the album was cruel and kind of evil. I don't plan on talking to my mom about it. I think it would be better to respect her desire to continue not having a relationship of any kind with my stepsister. My only plan is to make sure to give both of my folks big hugs. Now for a relevant comment. When asked how old Stepsis was when this occurred, OP replied, Stepsis was 18, maybe 19. Now for the update a few days later. I made a post a few days ago about learning about how the photo album made of photos of my deceased mother was actually a replacement album after my stepsister, her bio daughter, destroyed the original by setting it on fire with her friends. This led to my mom, I call my stepmom mom, going no contact with my stepsister. I was just getting something off my chest and was surprised by the responses I got. I texted my mom that I knew about what happened and asked if I could call her to talk about it. We talked and did clarify some things my dad likely forgot. Even before she had started seeing my dad, my mom and stepsister were having problems. Her ex-husband was a fair-weather parent and wasn't very supportive. My stepsister, during her last 2 years of high school, became part of a clique of girls who were always in trouble. Mom had to field several accusations of bullying and otherwise poor behavior. She tried to get her into counseling or therapy, but she refused point blank, and at a certain point, you can't force someone if they don't want to go into therapy. She tried grounding her and taking away privileges. She had also been lying about applying to colleges, so the final few months before graduation were a mad dash to apply for schools before throwing in the towel and having her apply to community college. When she married my dad and moved the both of them into my dad's house, the only expectations my mother gave her were to be nice and be tidy. She was never expected to babysit me. Well, she couldn't follow those guidelines and clashed almost every day with my mom and dad and would raise her voice at me. I had been 6 years old for watching TV or playing in the backyard. My stepsister only lived in that house for over a month before my mom sent her away. The breaking point was reached even before the photo album. My mom told her ex-husband he had to take her for a while. Stepsis was pissed because her father lived an hour away and she wouldn't be able to see her friends. But Mom put her foot down that she couldn't stay there with the way she had been treating everyone. My stepsister must have found the album and called her friends to meet up with her, where they burned it in a bonfire. When Mom asked why on earth she did it, my stepsis thought it would be funny to take something from my father and me that we would miss. Mom ended up kicking her out right there and calling movers that day. She was furious and upset and felt the two of them having some distance apart would be for the best. Mom was also panicking because she thought her marriage had just gone up in flames. However, my father never blamed my mom for what had happened. Mom told me she just didn't have the desire to reconnect with my stepsister when she reached out a few years ago. She can't let go of my stepsister's deliberate cruelty to not just her and my father, but to me. My stepsister was an adult when she did what she did. In her absence, she had a wonderful husband and 2 sons, my older stepbrother and I, who were kind to her. My relatives all loved her. She admitted that her mental health had improved considerably without my stepsister around. She had wanted to prioritize the people in her life who weren't toxic. She assured me she hadn't left her with nothing. She had full access to a college fund that my mother set up for her when she was born, and she will still get an inheritance. Mom finished the call by telling me she still felt horrible about what happened to the photo album and wished those memories of my mother weren't gone forever. I told her it was okay and that I appreciated the lengths she and my dad went to replace it before telling her I loved her. To address a few commenters, I did not and still do not have any desire to talk to my stepsister. I just wanted the whole story. Am I the idiot for reporting my employee to HR after she sent me an inappropriate photo? I'm the general manager for a corporate franchise breakfast restaurant. It's basically only me and management in-house. I have 2 kitchen managers, but they are more lead cooks than anything. I do all the scheduling, hiring, firing, disciplinary stuff, etc. It is corporate owned, so I have a regional director and there is an HR department at the head office. One of my kitchen employees just sent me a picture of her breasts, followed by an apology and saying she won't be coming in tomorrow. What do I do from here? I'm thinking obviously I call HR Monday morning and report this through them. What do I do beyond that? How do I protect myself fully in this situation? Now for a few comments. One commenter said it may have been a genuine accident, mentioning they've sent people messages meant for others by accident before. They suggested reporting it to HR immediately, but also ascertaining whether it was an accident or not. I responded that it was almost certainly an accident. There was no indication of interest otherwise, and she seemed embarrassed into calling out for tomorrow. I don't see the play otherwise. I also responded to some ideas of keeping personal and work message apps separately. I mentioned that they brought up a valid point and might have solved 2 issues for me. I have a hard time leaving my employees' text messages on read and tell them I'm always easy to reach. I prefer text because my service gets choppy sometimes and I can filter how urgent it is, but it does get draining being accosted on my days off all the time. A separate messaging service could solve both these issues, keeping work messages separate and avoiding this kind of mix-up in the future. There is no accidental nudes in the work messaging app excuse. Now, for the 5-day update. I made a post a few days ago asking for advice about having received a picture from an employee of her topless, followed by an apology. I got a lot of great responses. Most people saying what I was thinking, cover yourself and report to HR. A lot of people suggested I let it go and do nothing besides letting the employee know I knew it was an accident and deleted it. Then a handful of people didn't understand why anyone would report that, saying I was a bad person for even thinking it, and a bunch of questions and comments about the breasts themselves, asking to see them if they were nice, etc. Pretty much par for the course on the internet. I felt like I should update you guys. I ended up emailing HR the next morning, letting them know what happened and asking for advice. This was a Sunday morning. I also sent a text to my HR rep, letting them know I had sent them an email. HR got back to me soon after. The gist of the email they sent me was, you should meet with the employee in question, with a witness, and let them know of the possible consequences of their actions. Tell them about the risks of sending pictures like that out onto the internet. Remind them that they last forever, and that once they are out there, they have no choice over what happens to those pictures, as well as the possible repercussions to the person receiving them if someone else, like a partner or a boss, sees those pictures on someone's device. Let them know you are putting a disciplinary notice in their file to iterate the severity of their action, and let them know that there will be consequences if there is a recurrence in the future. In an effort to preserve the integrity of the employee to her colleagues, and in an attempt to alleviate some of the embarrassment of the situation, I didn't want to loop in one of the kitchen managers into the situation, besides the fact that they are both male. So I arranged for my HR rep to come down and meet her with me on the first shift back after her weekend. My HR rep is also female, which I feel like was more appropriate than to meet her with another man. I asked HR to meet me at a cafe across the street just to avoid any questions from staff or any chance of being overheard. There isn't a lot of space in my tiny office for 3 people, and I didn't want to sit in the dining room and chance being overheard, or the employee feeling more embarrassed than needed. The employee was admittedly embarrassed, but was very receptive and appreciative of the way we handled it. She was convinced I was letting her go. We reiterated that we were not, just crossing the T's and dotting I's. I couldn't not report this, but I also didn't want to loop in anyone she has to work with. Hence, HR being here. I showed her my phone, reassured her it was deleted right away, not shown to anyone, but that being corporate, I had no choice but to have what happened on paper. She had no issues signing her warning. All in, it was a good way to bury the hatchet and eliminate the awkwardness, and I feel much better knowing the situation is entirely above board. I think everyone sleeps better tonight because of the way it was handled. But let me tell you, I lost a lot of sleep about it the last few nights. I imagine she must have as well. Thanks, everyone. Keep it classy. Now for a few comments. I explained how HR works in my workplace. I mentioned that you don't just tell the staff, hey, you did this, warning you not to do it again, sign here. You have to walk them through the action, the policy they broke by committing it, the reason that policy is in place, the immediate repercussions of their action, the possible risks of said action, and the repercussions of recurrence. For example, if someone is late, you don't just tell them, hey, you were late, here's a piece of paper that says you were late, sign it. Instead, you highlight the attendance policy they agreed to, highlight the day and time of their breach of said policy, the impact that had on their teammates and the enterprise as a whole, the consequences of continuing this behavior, and a time and date to meet again to make sure the policy is being met. One commenter mentioned they loved the measures taken to prevent embarrassing her and to preserve the relationship. Another commenter said they think I handled this perfectly. They loved how I took steps to make sure she was more comfortable and not embarrassed, and met at another place to preserve her dignity. They said this is an example of exactly how these situations should be handled. Am I the idiot for reporting my coworker after he secretly drugged me with a marijuana brownie at work? I've always wanted to try pot, and I have a coworker who works part-time at a dispensary. He said he would bring me some marijuana to try sometime. I live in California, so I know it's legal, but I don't go to the dispensary because my wife thinks Zaza is terrible for you, and she doesn't want me using it. My coworker came into work today with some brownies he had made at home and offered me one. I asked him if there's any Zaza in them, and he said, no. I grabbed one and began to pound it down with my coffee, except I noticed it tasted a bit funny. I asked about the flavor, and he said, it's made from all organic, different than typical brownies, and laughed it off. Being the fool that I am, I shrugged it off and continued through my workday. 30 minutes go by and my heart rate just spikes randomly and I start sweating bullets. I start to breathe manually and I freak out. I have no idea what's going on. and I end up asking my boss to call an ambulance. I end up getting picked up and taken to the hospital, and the paramedics are asking me questions on how I'm feeling, if I took anything, etc. I tell them I didn't take anything, and they tell me I was having an anxiety attack. I get to the hospital, and my coworker texts me saying he put marijuana in the brownies and thought it would be funny to see me high at work. I tell the paramedic I ingested a marijuana-infused brownie, and he tells me to just stay hydrated and relax. I feel like shoot, and I'm stuck in a hospital right now, and I'm beyond pissed off. I don't know what to do and how to bring this up to my boss, or if I should pursue a lawyer. Please help. Now for a quick update. Police report has been filed. I reached out to my boss, and he has since then asked my coworker to not come in tomorrow. A meeting is being set up tomorrow with my boss and HR. Now for the 2-day update. I've been getting a lot of PMs requesting an update about my edible situation, and I'm here to post that now. Thanks for everybody's responses on my last thread. I have never had this happen to me, and I'm thankful for everyone's insight on the situation. I had a meeting with HR and my manager yesterday regarding the edible, and they wanted to know everything that had happened. I explained everything and what had happened to and from the hospital. My coworker lied and told HR that I knew the brownie had marijuana, and I took it to get through the workday. They asked me if this was true, and I told them he was lying. My coworker also told HR, I've been asking to try marijuana, and that's true. I did ask to try marijuana, but never on the job or without my consent. HR told me they needed to hear both sides of the story in order to pursue further action. The text message I received in the hospital saved my butt. I showed the text message stating the edible had marijuana and that he thought it would be funny to see me high at work. They requested a copy of the screenshot and after a few more questions asked me to go home. I have filed for workers' comp and I'm waiting to hear back from my job regarding this mess and what's going to happen now. I'm from California and I've never done this process before. I'm kind of scared I might get fired or something will happen with my employment. I guess I'll just have to find out over time. I did notify my boss that the test might not show as positive since I'm not a constant user, as advised by Redditors in my last thread. He told me this might be a problem for HR since they will make the final decision on what's going to happen, but he will vouch for me and try to make sure nothing happens with my employment. My coworker is now threatening to sue me if he gets terminated for lying about the edible. Can he even do that? I feel like this whole situation is just getting way out of control. I don't even know what to do. Update. Charges are being pressed. Now for the final update. He's been fired. I came into work today and had another meeting with my boss regarding the current edible incident. They've terminated my coworker, and charges are being pressed. I asked my boss if it was possible to notify the dispensary since I personally want to do as much damage as I can to this guy. My boss took the time to call them and notify his manager. Did it have to go that far? No, but he sure as hell made sure it did. I don't know if he's going to continue to be employed with them, but I'm glad this whole thing is over now. I've gotten no legal threats or text messages since yesterday, and things seem fine. That being said, thanks for all of your advice and responses. I'm going to go get a joint now to celebrate.